You go silent, but the silence is not quiet inside you. It is loud. It is full of questions, full of replayed moments, full of the same thought on a loop. Do they miss you? Or are they relieved you are gone? Are they fighting their feelings? Or are you the only one still holding on? Here is the part nobody says clearly enough. During no contact, an avoidant often does not want more pressure, more emotion, or more chasing. They want space, yes, but not the kind of space filled with your hidden presence. Not the kind where you vanish in words but stay wrapped around them in energy. And that changes everything, because if your silence is still begging, they feel it. If your distance is still reaching, they sense it. But when your energy truly leaves the room, when your heart stops standing outside their door waiting to be invited back in, the whole dynamic begins to shift. That is when they stop reacting to your pursuit and start facing your absence. Watch closely, because this is where most people lose their power, and this is also where they can take it back. Stay with me, because the truth is deeper than people think, and what happens next can completely change how you see love, loss, and your own value. This is not just about them, it is about the version of you that rises when you stop chasing answers and start choosing peace. Real no contact is not just silence, it is separation in the deepest sense. A lot of people stop texting, stop calling, stop showing up, but inside they are still standing right there. They check stories, they watch for changes in profile photos, they read old messages again, they imagine the reunion scene, they build whole conversations in their head before a single real message arrives. On the outside, it looks like distance. Inside, it is still attachment, still waiting, still emotional orbit, and avoidant people are often more sensitive to that than most realize. They may not say it. They may not even fully understand it themselves, but they can feel when someone is still hanging onto them. That silent pull feels like pressure, and pressure is exactly what makes them pull back harder. This is why fake no contact fails so often. You can disappear from their phone and still be emotionally chasing them every single day. That energy leaks through everything. Through mutual friends, through online behavior, through the way you react when their name comes up, through the fact that your whole emotional world still bends around whether they return. Genuine space means something cleaner. It means taking your hands off the outcome, not to prove a point, not to make them panic, not to win, but to finally step back into your own life with both feet. And once that happens, something subtle begins. They stop feeling managed. They stop feeling watched. They stop feeling like your emotions are waiting outside their window. And for the first time, they are left alone with the one thing avoidant people spend so much energy escaping: their own feelings. At first, many avoidants feel relief when no contact starts. That part is real. The pressure drops. The emotional heat goes down. The tension eases. If the relationship had become intense, confusing, or heavy, the silence can feel like a release. This is where so many people panic and ruin the process. They mistake that early calm for final closure, and then anxiety pushes them to break the distance too soon. But early relief is not the full story. It is just the first layer. Because when you have always been the one to reach out, the one to smooth things over, the one to keep some thread alive even after conflict, your absence does not fully register right away. They are still leaning on the pattern. They still expect your return. They think the silence will break the way it always has. Give it time. Patterns have to fail before reality can be felt. And when the days keep moving and you do not come back, a different feeling begins to grow. It is quieter, slower, more unsettling. They start noticing the missing rhythm. The little emotional supply they took for granted is no longer there. The person who used to keep the connection warm is gone. Not angry, not pleading, just gone. That is when the real weight can start landing. Not because you are punishing them, but because they are finally meeting the truth of your absence without your energy cushioning it. This is why consistency matters so much. If you return every time loneliness bites, you teach them that your boundary is temporary. You teach them that all they have to do is wait out your pain. But when your silence is steady, calm, and real, you show something different. You show that your peace is no longer negotiable. And here is where no contact becomes powerful in a way most people misunderstand. The goal is not just to disappear. It is to become deeply rooted in a life that does not revolve around whether they come back. That shift is magnetic, but only when it is real. Avoidants are often turned off by obvious performance. If your whole glow up looks like a message aimed at them, it usually reads as effort, not freedom. That is why forced happiness, dramatic posts, sudden nonstop activity, or a carefully displayed perfect life often miss the mark. They can feel when it is for show. What reaches them more deeply is something softer and more natural, a change in your energy, a steadier voice, a calmer face, the fact that you are no longer waiting for every day to explain itself through their absence. Maybe you start sleeping better. Maybe you reconnect with friends you had faded from. Maybe you take that course, change your routine, clean up your space, learn how to enjoy your own company again. Maybe you stop explaining yourself so much. Maybe your eyes no longer look like they are searching for permission to relax. Those are the shifts that carry weight. Those are the changes that quietly tell the world, and eventually tell them too, that you are growing in ways that do not need their approval, and that can stir something strong inside an avoidant, because what once felt safely available starts to feel valuable and less reachable. That tension matters, not because you are trying to trigger them, but because people often wake up to value when easy access disappears. Keep listening, because this next part is where the whole story turns. Avoidant people are often pulled in two directions at once. They fear being overwhelmed by closeness, but they also fear being truly left. That is the paradox. Too much pursuit makes them shut down. Total emotional coldness can let them detach and label the whole thing as over. This is why the most effective energy during no contact is not hostility, and it is not longing. It is calm distance. You do not chase. You also do not act like you need to slam every door to prove your worth. You simply stop carrying the connection for both people. That difference is huge. If they ever do reach out, many people fall into one of two traps. They either ignore the message to punish them, or they answer with instant warmth and relief that says, "I have been waiting right here the whole time." Both can break the deeper shift. The stronger response is balanced. Warm but contained. Open but not available on command. Kind but not hungry. Something simple can hold a lot of power when your energy is right. Not because the words are magic, but because your nervous system is no longer begging underneath them. You are showing that their absence did not destroy you, and their attention alone is not enough to pull you right back into the old dynamic. That is the moment the pressure flips. Not harshly, quietly. They may begin to feel that if they want access to you again, they may have to move with more honesty, more effort, and more care than before. And that is where avoidants sometimes meet a discomfort they are not used to. The discomfort of having to risk, to lean in, to clarify, to stop hiding behind distance and mixed signals. The deeper work, though, is not really about making them move. It is about changing the part of you that kept accepting uncertainty as love. That is the real turning point. No contact becomes transformative when you stop treating it like a technique and start using it as a mirror. Why did their pulling away shake your whole sense of safety? Why did mixed signals keep you hooked? Why did crumbs feel meaningful enough to survive on? These are not easy questions, but they matter, because avoidant dynamics often pull anxious patterns to the surface. Suddenly you are tracking tone, timing, response gaps, hidden meanings. You are reading into everything. You feel like your emotional balance depends on what they do next, and that state is exhausting. It makes you forget yourself. The healing starts when you learn to hold your own feelings without making another person responsible for stabilizing them. That does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming grounded. It means letting pain move through you without turning it into pursuit. It means sitting with loneliness without calling it proof that you need the wrong person back. It means building self-trust in places where you used to build fantasy. Slowly, your energy changes. You stop over-explaining. You stop using contact as medicine. You stop trying to manage connection with perfect wording and endless patience. You begin to understand that love cannot be healthy if it keeps requiring you to abandon your own center. And the moment that understanding becomes real in your body, not just in your thoughts, the entire dynamic changes. Because now you are not asking, how do I get them back? You are asking, do they even have the depth and consistency to meet me where I am now? This is why your growth during no contact has to be for you. Not as a strategy, not as a performance, not as a long, clever move in a romantic game. Real growth has a different sound. It is quieter, less dramatic, more solid. You begin doing things because they make your life feel real again, not because they make you look desirable. You go outside because your body needs sunlight, not because maybe they will hear you are doing better. You reconnect with people because your heart wants honest company, not because you want them to think you are suddenly in demand. You take care of your mind because peace feels better than obsession, not because you want to appear unbothered. And that kind of healing leaves marks that cannot be faked. Your reactions slow down. Your need to decode everything weakens. You stop treating every memory like a sign. You stop making every delay mean something. You become less readable in the best possible way because your inner world is no longer leaking out in search of validation. And for an avoidant, that can be deeply unsettling. They are often used to being the harder one to read. They are used to the other person showing more, reaching more, revealing more. When that pattern breaks, curiosity can rise. The usual map no longer works. They do not know where they stand with you. They do not know if you are hurting, healing, moving on, or simply choosing peace without needing them to witness it. That uncertainty can stay in their mind much longer than open pain ever would. Not because mystery is a trick, but because unresolved emotional space tends to linger. And when you are no longer feeding the old cycle with obvious signals, they are finally left with silence that asks something of them. That is the power of emotional privacy. Not hiding your truth from yourself, but stopping the habit of making your emotional state public for someone else to manage, judge, or use as reassurance. So many people in no contact accidentally keep the connection alive by broadcasting how they feel. Sad posts, heavy quotes, indirect messages, mutual friends carrying updates. Even fake joy can become a signal if it is too sharp, too sudden, too polished. All of it gives the avoidant something to organize, a story to tell themselves. They can say they are still upset, or they are clearly trying to prove something, or they are moving on fine. But when there is no obvious story, when your emotional world becomes private and steady, something changes. They cannot place you so easily. They cannot file you away in a neat emotional box. And that lack of clarity can hold their attention far more than dramatic displays ever could. They may start asking quiet questions they cannot answer. Are you still affected? Did you finally let go? Are you seeing someone else? Did they lose the emotional hold they once had over you? This does not guarantee a return. Nothing does. And that is important to say. But it can create the exact kind of inner tension avoidants usually avoid by keeping one foot out the door. The difference now is that the uncertainty is not yours alone. They have to feel some of it too. And while that happens, you stay focused on what matters more. Your own life, your own healing, your own standards. Because even if they never come back, the version of you that stops broadcasting pain and starts protecting peace has already won something bigger than reconciliation. That version of you is no longer easy to shake. There is another layer to this that matters a lot. An avoidant does not usually move closer because they are chased harder. They move closer when they do, because something inside them becomes active enough to overcome their usual distance. That activation often comes when the other person starts showing more secure energy. Calm, self-respect, clear limits, emotional steadiness. Not perfection, not coldness, just a grounded way of being that says, I care, but I do not collapse without you. That matters because avoidants often feel both drawn to and threatened by real security. It is attractive because it feels safe and spacious. It is confronting because it removes the old dynamic where they could stay vague while still keeping connection within reach. When you become more secure, you naturally stop doing the little things that used to keep the anxious avoidant cycle alive. You stop sending extra messages to close the gap. You stop trying to force clarity out of someone who avoids clarity. You stop using hyper-understanding as a way to earn stable love. You stop shrinking your needs so they will not leave. And suddenly the relationship or the memory of it no longer runs on the same fuel. If they want access to you now, it may require them to become more direct, more emotionally honest, more present. Some will rise to that, some will not. And that truth is important because no contact is not only revealing them to you, it is revealing you to yourself. It is showing you what you tolerated, what you romanticized, and what no longer fits the person you are becoming. That clarity is not small. It can change every relationship that comes after this one. Still, one of the hardest parts of no contact is the waiting space where nothing seems clear. No message, no closure, no big sign. Just time moving, slow and strange. This is where your mind will try to create meaning out of crumbs. A view on your story, a song posted online, a random late-night text that says nothing real. Be careful here. Not every movement means growth. Not every small contact is a breakthrough. Avoidance can reach out for many reasons. Curiosity, loneliness, habit, a moment of missing you. A need for comfort without true readiness. That is why your standard must become stronger than your hope. If they return, do not just ask whether they came back. Ask what they came back with. Are they clearer, more honest, more consistent, more willing to stay in discomfort long enough to build something different? Or are they only trying to reopen a familiar door without changing the room behind it? This is where people lose themselves again. They mistake contact for change. They mistake warmth for capacity. They mistake being missed for being valued in a healthy way. But the version of you that has done real work can slow down and see what is actually in front of you. No rushing. No instant reunion in your head. No handing them your healed heart just because they knocked. Let actions gather. Let patterns reveal themselves. Let time tell the truth. Because if you had to break yourself to survive the old dynamic, then getting them back exactly as they were is not a win. Listen carefully. This point alone can save you months, even years, of repeating the same wound with a different soundtrack. And if they do not come back, that does not mean the process failed. It means the process worked in a different way. Sometimes no contact is the path that removes fantasy and restores vision. It takes the person off the pedestal and puts you back in your own life. At first, that can feel brutal. The silence becomes proof of what they could not give. The absence becomes evidence you did not want to see. But later, if you let yourself keep healing, the story changes. You realize that what hurt most was not only losing them, it was losing the version of the future you attached to them. It was grieving what you hoped they could become, not just who they repeatedly showed you they were. That is a painful truth, but it is freeing too, because once you stop loving potential more than reality, your standards get cleaner. Your heart gets wiser. You stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional depth. You stop calling inconsistency mystery. You stop treating distance like a puzzle you have to solve to earn love. And maybe for the first time, you become available for something healthier than the cycle that once consumed you. Something calmer, more mutual, less dramatic, more honest. Something where closeness does not have to be chased and care does not have to be guessed. That shift may not feel exciting at first if chaos has been your normal, but it is life-changing. And the person you become through this process is the kind of person who can finally recognize peace as love instead of boredom, stability as safety instead of lack of passion, and consistency as attraction instead of something to doubt. So if you are in no contact right now, understand what this season is really asking from you. It is asking you to stop building your emotional life around someone else's hesitation. It is asking you to let silence teach you where you abandoned yourself trying to keep connection alive. It is asking you to become strong enough to hold love and truth in the same hand. Yes, part of you may still want them to return. Be honest about that. But let that honesty stay private and clean. Do not let it run your choices. Use this time to build a life that feels full without needing their message to complete the day. Protect your energy. Protect your routines. Protect your healing. Let your calm become real. Let your joy become natural. Let your standards become non-negotiable. And if they do come back, let them meet someone who no longer confuses longing with destiny. Let them meet someone who can listen without melting, who can care without collapsing, who can open the door without abandoning self-respect. And if they never return, let that also be an answer. Not the answer your fear wanted, but maybe the answer your future needed. Because in the end, no contact is not about mastering their psychology. It is about ending the habit of losing yourself in somebody else's distance. It is about becoming so rooted in your own worth that whether they turn back or keep walking, you remain whole. That is the real shift. That is the freedom. That is the point where the silence stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like space. Space to heal, space to see clearly, space to become someone your old self would barely recognize and someone your future will thank you for becoming. And one more truth before we close, because this may be the part you need most. The real win is not getting them to wonder about you. The real win is reaching a place where their wondering is no longer the thing that feeds you. That is when peace becomes real. That is when you stop waking up and checking whether the story changed overnight. That is when your body no longer lives on alert. That is when your mind stops negotiating with crumbs. That is when you finally understand that being loved should not feel like being left in a hallway waiting for a door to open. Love should not keep you in confusion for months while you try to turn silence into a promise. It should not require endless decoding. It should not ask you to become smaller, quieter, easier, and less human just to stay connected. So let this be the moment you return to yourself fully. Let this be the moment you stop trying to be chosen by someone who benefits from your uncertainty. Let this be the moment you decide that your heart is not a waiting room. If they come back with honesty, depth, and real change, you can decide from strength, not hunger. If they do not, keep moving, keep building, keep healing, keep becoming. Because every day you do not chase what cannot meet you, you make space for what can. Every day you choose dignity over obsession, you repair something inside yourself. Every day you refuse to trade your peace for a maybe, you step closer to the kind of love that does not require you to disappear to be appreciated. And that is where this journey was always meant to lead, not back into confusion, not back into guessing, but forward into self-respect, into clarity, into the kind of peace that no one gets to disturb unless they are ready to honor it.